Dealing with squatters, my real story. There are certain lessons in business I hope you never have to learn. This is one of them. Because, when people talk about Airbnb, they always talk about, oh, the income's good. They talk about the money. They talk about the cash flow, the freedom, the flexibility, and the lifestyle. But it's always somebody is going to ask this question. What if somebody don't leave? Well, that's what we don't normally talk about, is when we have guests who refuse to leave the property. And I'm not even talking about a bad guest. I'm not talking about a loud guest or even a disrespectful guest. I'm talking about somebody who stops paying and decides they're staying. This lesson exists so that you don't panic if this ever happens to you. More importantly, I want you to prevent it before it ever starts. So here's how it normally starts. They start off as a normal tenant. Let me tell you exactly how the situation began. So I had a tenant living in one of my apartments, and at first everything was normal. Rent was being paid on time, communication was fine, no red flags. But as time began, things slowly took a change. Rent started coming in late, then partial payments, then here come the excuses to why, and then inevitably silence. Eventually the payment stopped coming in completely. When I asked him to leave, he didn't. That's when I realized that I wasn't dealing with a guest anymore. I was dealing with a legal issue. So this problem was known as squatting, y'all, okay? This is where I need you to listen carefully. When rent stopped coming in, I made a decision, and it was out of frustration. I allowed the electricity bill to lapse. If they ain't had the money, all right? So I assumed that if they're not paying the rent, then they shouldn't have utilities. It made logical sense in my mind, right? But that assumption was completely wrong, and it was illegal. And, when you shut the utilities off as a landlord, that's considered self-help eviction, and tenants can actually use it against you in court. I had to learn that through research. And in that moment, ultimately, I weakened my own position. So that emotion definitely could have cost me leverage. So it's something for you to think about, because I know it's one of our first things to do when we have a squatter. Here's where things took a turn. I drove my car by the apartment. I noticed something strange. The lights are still on. I'm like, I know I ain't paid the power bill, so how is the light still on? So I called the electric company to find out what was going on. And what I learned really shocked me. When the account lapsed, the electricity reverted back to the apartment complex master account. Therefore, they were still getting free electricity, and the complex didn't disconnect it. So that was interesting. So now, not only was I not getting rent, I didn't have no leverage with the electricity. That didn't work. And a tenant who wasn't leaving, I was dealing with that. So eventually I started to take action. My lease in one hand and a power drill in the other. I planned to change the locks. So when I got to the door, I discovered something unbelievable. They had already changed the locks. I'm like, man, what do these people think they are? So on my own property, you gonna change the locks? So at that moment, I knew the situation was beyond casual handling. So I called the police and I met them at the property. So here's the real shock and reveal of what happened when the police got there. So when they arrived, we gained access and we discovered something. The original tenant wasn't even there anymore. He had moved out months earlier. Instead, it was a young woman living there, and she claimed that she was paying him rent in cash to my original tenant who had moved out. That's crazy, right? So, but here's where she couldn't prove it. She couldn't provide a lease, because I had the lease. She couldn't prove any proof of payment, so that was good. She didn't have a rental agreement. She didn't have any document tying her to the unit. So the officer asked her the most important question of the night. Do you have any mail with this address? Really, the police were trying to help her out. And she said no. And that's what saved me. See, without having a mail or something written down, she had no legal basis to stay in the house. And they asked her to move that night. So I got lucky. You understand, mail establishes residency. So be careful with that. Utility bills establish residency, just as bank statements and different things do. So be very mindful with allowing tenants to mail things to their house. Even if it's government, I don't care what they say. Hey, I got a credit card and I need to get it. They better mail it down the street to the post office. So even without paying, the courts wouldn't then be able to remove her if she would have had something with her name on it. So that really helped me out. So I learned a really good lesson there. Now, because she had no mail, no documentation, the police told her that she had to pack it up and leave immediately. I lost months of rent, but I avoided losing the property. So it all worked out at the end. So the lessons that changed everything. Let me tell you, the lessons from this experience: first, never act emotionally. Emotion weakens your legal position. Second, never shut off utilities. That can destroy your case. Third, never allow mail delivery to your property. Okay? Never. Mail equates to residency. The fourth thing, documentation is power. Lease, contracts, screenings, all those things protect you in the end. This experience cost me more than money, but it kept the knowledge that I gained. It was priceless. The knowledge was so imperative, y'all. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you exactly how I structured my lessons, how I did my rules after that, and how I stopped that from happening again. So prevention is always cheaper than eviction. Remember that. I'll see you next in week 4.